Hello again. I'm going to make a Swiss roll. It's a true fatless sponge, and so without any fat it doesn't keep very well. It needs to be eaten on the day that you make it. Of course, if you have some left for the next day, it's perfect for putting into trifle. Now the first thing to do is to prepare your tin, and you're going to need what I call a Swiss roll tin. It's about 20 centimetres by 30 centimetres. This is rather an old one, it's a bit scruffy, but it's going to be lined with greaseproof. So you need a piece that's going to be tall enough to come up the sides all round. So I'm going to cut here and use the straight edge of the box as my guide. And then we take a pencil and we just mark the corners. You can't see what you're doing, you just put the pencil under there and do a bit of a scribble and hope for the best. Then, with our scissors, cut from the corner of the paper to your little mark. If you're lining a tin, it's worth doing it well because you get neater sides on whatever sort of a cake you're making. So now fold those in. And there's our paper ready. Now we need to grease our tin so that the paper will stick to it. I've got a little bit of sunflower oil there, just roughly, but do the sides as well. Then lift your paper in. Press it down and then just persuade it to go nicely around the corners. There we are. That's quite neat. Now we're going to grease the paper as well because we want this to come off our Swiss roll really easily. There, now that's ready, so I'm going to put that to one side. Now in my mixing bowl I've got caster sugar, 125 grams of caster, and to that I'm going to add 3 eggs, and I like to do them one at a time. Oops, that was a bit heavy crack. So check for shell, in it goes, and then do the other 2. And it's always a good idea to have them at room temperature because they just work better. They prefer to not be too cold. So in they go, and I'm just going to wash my hands because I've got a lot of egg white on me. Hold on. Right, so there we are. Now the next thing to do is use an electric mixer, and we're going to whisk these until the mixture is almost white. It will have absolutely doubled or trebled in size, and you will have got a really pale, frothy mixture. So high speed, and it could take anything up to 5 minutes. Be patient. Now, can you see that that's starting to get paler and thicker? And I should also tell you that I've got the oven onto gas mark 6, which is 200 Celsius, 180 if you've got a fan oven, 400 if you're Fahrenheit. So it's getting thicker and paler, but I've got to keep going. Don't be tempted to stop too soon. Right, there we are. 4.5 minutes later, we've got something very pale, very thick, very frothy, a bit like whipped cream really. So to this we now add 75 grams of plain flour, and this is one of the very few times that I actually do sieve my flour. So I'm going to put it all in at once and just give it a good shake. It's to make sure you've got no lumpy bits because there's a risk you'll get pockets of flour, so this just helps to get rid of any lumps. And in addition to the flour, we're going to add 1 tablespoon of hot water. And that helps to just create some steam, which is a raising agent. And then we fold. And when you fold, you don't go crazy and bash all the air out. You use the side of a tablespoon and you make a letter J, lift it out and turn the mixture over. Down, and then roll the mixture over as you turn the spoon in your hand. Turn the bowl as you go, and you just keep turning, drawing it through, turning it over, until you're not seeing any more pockets of flour coming to the surface. And by sieving it, you get rid of all those big lumps that might be in your flour. It depends what sort of flour you use, really. So very gently, just fold through there, and we're nearly ready to get this into the tin. And then it's going to cook for 12 minutes. There it is. Right, so let's bring the tin over. And we pour. We don't really help it too much because that risks breaking the bubbles. let it just pour itself in, and then I will use the spoon to just go round. There's a pocket of flour there, so I'm going to cover that with the mixture. I've got to turn the bowl because I can't do it. And you can just give your spoon a bit of a wipe. And then you don't tap it and try and smooth it. If it's not onto the corners, you just tip the tin so that it runs into the corners, and that goes in the oven now, and that's going to be 12 minutes. And then there's more to do while it's in. So 2/3 of the way up in the oven, and across it, not front to back, side to side, and then set your timer for 12 minutes. Now, while it's cooking, you've got to get another piece of greaseproof onto a cooling rack. And it's always a good idea, if it's very curly, to curl the edge over the wire rack, give it a bit of a crease down there, just to hold it in place, and then cut so that it will curl around on the side as well. So you can see how that's just holding itself on the rack, and we sprinkle that with caster sugar. It gives it that sort of characteristic frosted look. And we're going to turn our Swiss roll out onto this. So this will be on the surface of the cake. It's probably half a dessert spoonful. Try and get it as even as you can. I'm not very good at this. There we are. So that's our sugar. And you're going to fill it with something. Now, if you want to fill it straight away and make a jammy one, you put about 3 tablespoons of jam into a saucepan and you warm it, because if it's warm it spreads more easily. So 1, 2, 3. If you want to fill it with something else like cream and strawberries or lemon curd, you'll need to roll it up with just this paper inside it. Let it cool, and then you unroll it and spread in the cream or the lemon curd when the thing has cooled down, and then you re-roll it. So I'm just going to go and soften this whilst the Swiss roll is cooking. So I've got a small burner and I've got my jam in here. Strawberries often used because of the colour contrast, but you can use whatever you like. But any sort of jam will need to be warmed. Otherwise, there's a degree of speed needed for spreading, and if it's very cold out of the fridge or if it's very thick, it won't spread very easily. So just by warming it, you soften it. It makes it easier to spread. And to be honest, all you need to do is drop it in little blobs all over and use the back of the spoon to spread it. So there we are. I'm going to leave that until my Swiss roll is cooked, and then I'll show you how we deal with it. Here we are. There's our Swiss roll. Very, very soft to touch, but I promise you it's cooked, and you've got to be quite quick and turn it out on top of the caster sugar. Whoops, like that. Now, if it doesn't quite go straight, persuade it over a little bit, and then remove the paper. It is hot, so mind your fingers. And I've got a straight bladed knife ready, just to trim off the sides. Now, because we've greased the paper, it's actually coming off quite nicely. Gently peel it out. Wow, look at steam. Hot. Now, the next thing to do is just take off those crusty bits. They're not ever so crusty, but they are crusty enough that they would crack when you roll it. I'm sure there'll be somebody who'll want to eat those because they taste lovely. You can see how soft it is. So get rid of those. Just make a little score mark at the end nearest to you, and then on with our lovely jam. Drizzle if you can a bit, which will help with the spreading. And if you like plenty of jam, then you could always have put an extra bit in there. But you know, 3 tablespoons really is enough, and I've got some strawberries in there as well. Just spotted those. So there's the jam. Now back of the spoon, spread it to the edges. If it oozes out, don't worry, because that helps with all that lovely deliciousness. And then you're going to roll. You're going to start at this end nearest to you, and where you've made that little mark, you're going to turn it over onto that, and then you're going to lift roll as you go. Now that's not tight enough for my liking. I'd like that to be a bit tighter, but it's very hot. There it goes. Lift the paper up with it, and then when you get to the end, put the paper over the top, and then put something on it to hold it in place. You can't see much. Now if you wanted to use lemon curd, what you would do is roll it up with the paper inside it. I don't know if you can see that there's no jam, obviously, there's just the paper went with the roll as it happened. Now at this stage what you have to do is unroll it. Whoops, it's broken. I'm not worried about that. And I'm going to put some lemon curd in there. So if you put this on a hot Swiss roll, it would soak in and it would just make the whole thing very, very soggy. So try and get some into that end as well. I'm using a dessert spoon because the mouth of the jar is not terribly big. And then spread that. Don't lick your finger. And then roll it back up again with the lemon curd in. And there you have lemon curd Swiss roll. How's that? Well, have a go. Let me know how you get on. Don't worry if yours is not wonderfully successful. It will taste amazing on the day you make it. The next day, turn it into trifle. Bye.